Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I have updates about Donald Trump's Iran war, Operation Epstein Fury. The shit hit the fan today. This has gone off the rails in a way no one saw coming. So, this was breaking news from this morning. A Trump official resigned because of the war. He specifically said that. And this isn't some liberal holdover from the Biden administration. This is a guy named Joe Kent, who is a Trump humper, or was. He was an election denier. Like, this guy was all aboard the Trump train. He was appointed by Donald Trump to be the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. And he worked, I guess, like right alongside as a top aide to the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. So this guy, like, you couldn't question his loyalty to Donald Trump. But he sent a resignation letter and he posted it online. And here's what it said. It says, in part, quote, "I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. I support the values and the foreign policies that you campaigned on in 2016, 2020, and 2024, which you enacted in your first term. Until June of 2025, you understood that the wars in the Middle East were a trap that robbed America of the precious lives of our patriots and depleted the wealth and prosperity of our nation. Early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States and that you should strike now. There was a clear path to a swift victory. This was a lie and is the same tactic the Israelis used to draw us into a disastrous war that cost our nation the lives of thousands of our best men and women. We cannot make this mistake again." And then Kent went on to say that, he served in the military. He lost his wife in the military due to another Israeli manufactured war. So this is monumental for a couple reasons. First of all, it makes Tulsi Gabbard look even worse than she already does, right? She was this supposed anti-war veteran. She, was supposedly against the forever wars, spoke out against the previous wars in the Middle East. And now today she puts out this very meek statement, kind of sort of in support of the Trump administration. But like, this is a guy, like I said, who worked directly with her. So it makes her look like the biggest cuck in the world, that she is not out the door with him. And the Trump regime is going full bore against this guy. Like, they have they're waging the war in Iran, and then they've got a second war against Joe Kent. Like, they are after him. Trump was asked about his resignation today, and he did exactly what you'd expect. He insulted him. He called him weak. Trump then doubled down on his lie that Iran posed an immediate threat to the U.S. And here's the thing. They have to shut him down. Like, they have to go against this guy. They have to basically annihilate him in the media, because if they don't, then other people might stand up. Other people might speak out. Other people might go against the regime, and they might quit as well. And so they can't have that. You can't have someone who, speaks out and there's no consequences for him, because it just shows everybody else who's on the fence about this or is fully against it, it's not safe to speak, or if they don't go against him, it shows them that it's safe to speak out, and then others might follow. So they are just after this man. Like, they are doing the biggest smear campaign right now. They're trying to make it out like he is a traitor, that he had been cut off from receiving intelligence information months ago, so he couldn't possibly know the truth about this war because, he was the one leaking information to the press, and so they cut him off. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, this is just day one. This is going to get so ugly. So keep an eye on this, guys. I am seeing so much on Twitter, just trying to take this guy down. Anyway, here is the cost of their lies, by the way. The number of wounded troops we now know has risen. So this was reported today in the Washington Post that the number now exceeds 200 of our service members have been injured. And this is done in missile and drone attacks in 7 different countries. So a military leader claims that 180 of them have now returned to duty, but they've said, yeah, there's some that have very long-term serious traumatic brain injury. So I would imagine with the lies that this administration tells, whatever they're telling us, it's way worse. And all of these injuries were because of, like I said, attacks on neighboring countries where the U.S. has troops stationed, so bases, embassies. Trump, though, says, oh, this was a complete surprise. We had no idea that they would do something like this. Take a listen.
We weren't supposed to go after all these other countries in the Middle East. Those missiles were set to go after them. So they hit Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. Nobody expected that. We were shocked.
We were shocked. Really? Shouldn't have been. I mean, you know how we know he's lying? Besides the fact that his mouth is moving? Because they told us this. They told us that they knew this would happen. Remember, there was one of their excuses that they used to start this war in the first place was told us by Marco Rubio. He said we had to attack Iran first because Israel said they were going to attack, and we knew that then Iran would hit American targets in response. So we had to strike first. So you told us that you knew. And then on top of that, Iran warned that this is what they were going to do. Iran came out and said, if you start a war, if you target us, we are going to go after all of your assets in the region. I mean, and then we had leaks today from within Donald Trump's administration saying, no, he was warned. We told him that this was a possibility. So as usual, nothing but bullshit and incompetence from this administration. Those troops should have been moved. They should have been moved before this happened. They were unbelievably negligent in their duty to protect the men and women who have given their time, their energy, their all to support our country. What Donald Trump has unleashed with the Israelis is just unconscionable. He effectively unshackled a fellow sociopath, someone who wants to take over the entire Middle East. And speaking of power-hungry sociopaths, J.D. Vance was confronted about his support for Trump's war. You know, given his critique of the previous wars, he was supposedly this non-interventionist. Well, he gave the most J-douche Vance answer that you would expect. So check out what he said, all this bullshit he's spewing out of his pie hole. And while you're listening to him, watch Trump, because he can barely keep his eyes open.
As the president said, this is a problem that has festered in this country for far too long, and far too few people have actually wanted to do anything about it. That's what makes this administration different, is that we actually tackle the problems the American people have been confronting. So I'm very happy about it. And look, I think that I know what you're trying to do, Phil. You're trying to drive a wedge between members of the administration, between me and the president. What the president said consistently, going back to 2015, and I agreed with him, is that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. We have taken this military action under the president's leadership. I think all of us, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, should pray for its success and pray for the safety of our troops. That's the approach that I've taken. Make it as successful as possible.
So there's no hesitation, given your past statements, with the current operation?
What do you mean there's no hesitation with my past statements?
Given your skepticism of foreign adventurism, you were a critic of the global war on terror previously.
Well, I think one big difference, Phil, is that we have a smart president, whereas in the past we've had dumb presidents. And I trust President Trump to get the job done, to do a good job for the American people, and to make sure that the mistakes of the past aren't repeated. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Trump is just so much smarter than all of our previous presidents. Is he freaking for real? Does he hear himself? And this is his typical move, right? He lies and then he pivots and he attacks the person who asked the question. So it puts them back on their heels. They're on the defensive. This is like standard debate technique, right? When you don't have a good answer, then you try to deflect and then you attack. So he's just so predictable at this point. So anyway, the fallout continues, though. The oil prices held steady today. It was around $94 a barrel. Moody's Analytics is now predicting a recession if this goes on much longer. Their chief economist said that if this drags on for a few more weeks and the Strait of Hormuz remains unsafe for travel, for ships, this will turn into a recession. They said it will be, quote unquote, unavoidable. So in other words, we're screwed. There was a slight bit of good news today, though. MAGA media is out for Lindsey Graham's blood and his head because he played such an outsized role in this war. So yesterday, Charlie Kirk's friends and producers announced that they plan to take Graham down. They hosted 2 Republican candidates who are running against Graham, and they made it clear that Kirk hated what Graham stood for, as do they. As the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I don't agree with much of what Kirk and his friends have said, but on this subject, we are in lockstep. This is time to take out the Graham trash. So anyway, guys, there you have it. Good and bad news today, but again, they're out for Kent's head. They are going to destroy this man because they have to, because otherwise it will be a full mutiny. All right. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.